I'll go over the agenda in a minute, and the presentation will be posted on our website after the webinar. So hopefully everyone can hear and see us at this point. So first we're going to go over a quick background. Then we're going to go over the logistics for the request for the proposals. Then we're going to go over the proposals elements, and that'll be the bulk of the presentation. And then we'll open it up to Q&A. So we're going to try to go through the presentations first and then answer your questions. Then we'll spend a small amount of time talking about some of the innovation resources we have here at Metropolitan that can help you guys if you're looking for new technologies for some of your projects. And then we'll close with additional information and reminders. So with that, let me launch into the agenda. So I did that. So this is a follow-up to the Foundational Actions Funding Program that was launched in 2013. And that came out of our 2010 Integrated Resources Plan that recognized that the region faced a number of uncertainties that would either jeopardize some of our local supplies or increase the need to accelerate local supplies under certain circumstances. And so we were thinking of things like climate change, like regulations from Sacramento, and other factors that could affect our supply development. And so we came up with the idea of these future supply actions. And these are actions that the region could do that are low regret, low cost, low impact, that could remove barriers to development of these local supplies. And if I could sum this program up in one sentence, it would be to remove barriers to local supply production. And so the program is focused on 4 local supplies: groundwater, recycled water, stormwater, and seawater desalination. And so those are the supplies that are going to be, the projects related to those supplies are what will be funded underneath this program, just like the Foundational Action Funding Program before that. And just to give you some background on what we funded on the last time around, you can see the 4 supplies. I won't go into all the details here, but we funded 13 studies. 13 member agencies participated in various types of partnerships. We invested about $3 million in the studies and leveraged $6 or $7 million in total. And we concluded the program with a symposium that had over 240 people as part of the information sharing. And moving forward, the Future Supply Actions Funding Program has 2 program elements. The first one was, or is, funding for 7 potable reuse studies with the Water Research Foundation under their Advancing Potable Water Research Initiative. I'm sorry, Reuse Initiative. And we recently signed the agreement with them for those studies. We're investing about $1 million, and those studies will be hitting the streets in the near future. Those are being managed by the Water Research Foundation, and we're one of several funding partners. One of the other large funding partners for that initiative is the State Water Resources Control Board. What we're here to talk about today are the member agency studies. And so this is, again, a follow-up to the Foundational Actions Funding Program. It is for the member agencies, so all the proposals have to come from member agencies. This time around, we have $3.5 million to give out in grants. And the focus here, like the sweet spot for this program, are short 2-year pilot studies and research that can be done in a relatively short amount of time, but are impactful and really move the ball forward on these local supplies. And we're here to talk about the request for proposals and talk about what's required and what we're looking for, and also to answer your questions and get feedback as well. So next slide, please. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Nadia Hardinata, who will give us talk about the RFP logistics, and then Tracy Abundez will be online after her to talk about the proposal elements and criteria. So Nadia, I'll hand it off to you.
All right. Thank you, Warren. Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to jump into the RFP logistics. So to bid or not to bid, that is the question. As mentioned by Warren, this program is meant to identify and investigate opportunities to develop future water resources. So examples of studies under this program may include pilot and bench scale studies, demonstration studies, tracer studies, system integration studies, innovative treatment processes, new sensor technologies, any ocean intakes and outfalls, as well as brine disposal and harvesting. Because the program is designed to encourage short-term studies targeting barriers to future supply production, therefore the program does not include design of full-scale projects, any construction of full-scale projects, CEQA documentation for projects, any existing studies or projects, acquisition of properties, or repeat of prior studies. If you're wondering who can submit, the request for proposal is open to all Metropolitan member agencies. It is encouraged that member agencies partner with other member agencies or other entities. However, the proposal must be submitted by one designated lead member agency with a maximum of 3 proposals. For the funding of the program, the total funding available for this RFP is $3.5 million. Member agencies may submit proposal funding requests for up to $500,000 per agency, or up to $500,000 for a single proposal. So if a member agency submits multiple proposals, member agency must indicate the priority ranking of each proposal. If agencies are partnering on a proposal and the lead member agency submitting the proposal shall be responsible for any priority ranking of multiple proposals from that member agency. Please remember that a proposal may only be submitted once. Each proposal requires a non-metropolitan monetary match of at least 100% of metropolitan funded amounts. In-kind services will not be counted towards the required funding. The program provides for a 2-year studies, and funding will not be provided for any work that won't allow results to be released to the public. So for the proposal, the format guidelines, the RFP must be formatted on a 8.5 by 11 size paper with a 12-point font and a text no smaller than 10 size font. It shall be no more than 20 pages and not exceed the 15 megabytes. It must be on PDF format, and you can send an email to FSA Funding Program at mwdh20.com. An electronic copy of the proposal must be submitted in PDF format. Please do not include video or any other digital media. Proposal shall be clear, accurate, and comprehensive. So excessive or irrelevant materials will not be favorably received. Proposals that are not in conformance with these formatting requirements may be deemed non-responsive and may be rejected. For the content requirement for the RFP, it's listed. We start off with executive summary letters, entities participating in proposals, key individuals, proposal descriptions, and criteria 1 through 4. Tracy will go more in depth on each of these listed content requirements. For the evaluation and selection, proposals will be evaluated by an independent review panel consisting of metropolitan and non-metropolitan professionals in the water resources industry in Southern California. Metropolitan staff will then review the panel's suggestion and develop a list of recommended proposals and funding levels for Metropolitan's Board of Directors for approval. During evaluation process, the review panel may request for clarification from the applicant as necessary, but remember that the clarification request is not a negotiation. So if a similar proposal or proposals that would provide similar results are submitted, then only one proposal may be selected for funding. If multiple proposals are submitted that could collectively part of an overall project, then again, only one eligible proposal may be selected. Review panel may elect to interview applicants or have applicant give an oral presentation. Applicants must be prepared for the interview or give presentation within 10 business days of the request. The interview or presentation may be evaluated as part of the proposal. So here are the selection and criteria and weights. Start off with projects reduction of barriers to future production will be weighted at 40%. Projects regional benefit will be weighted at 30%. Projects work plan schedule is at 15%, and the cost will be at 15%. Here's the schedule for the RFP. Please note that the last day for questions for clarification will be on August 2nd, and it closes at 1 p.m. Also, the RFP proposal will be due on August 31st, and it's also due by 1 p.m. So to address questions for clarification, please address it in writing by, again, August 2nd at 1 p.m. To Mr. Warren Heights at FSA Funding Program at mwgh2o.com. And I'm going to hand it over to Tracy, where she will talk more in depth about the proposal content requirements. Tracy?
Thank you. So I'll be talking more about the elements of your proposal and the criteria we'll be using to evaluate them. And I'll also touch on some lessons learned from the previous round, the 2013 round, and then at that point, we'll be opening it up to questions. So the first element of your proposal should be your executive summary. The letter should give us a brief description of what your project is, what you're planning on doing, how you plan on meeting the objectives and requirements of this RFP. It should identify any material and enclosures that are included in the proposal, and also please make sure that the letters are signed by the member agency and partnering member agencies, and that it includes the following language. I am informed and believe that the information contained in this proposal is true and the supporting data is accurate and complete. This information can be found in the RFP as well. Also in the summary letter, please include the following information: the name of your proposal, what water resource category it is, whether it's stormwater, seawater, desal, recycled water, groundwater, and then also some information on your agency. Moving on to some housekeeping information to include in the proposal. Please list and identify all the partnering or participating agencies, other member agencies or sub-agencies that are partnering with you on this project. Include any support letters from the participants, and just as a note, the 20-page limit that Nadia mentioned, the support letters are not included in that limit. And lastly, include the key individuals, whether there's going to be a team that's designated for this project, or if there's certain key individuals, please let us know and provide us with their contact information and any relevant work experience they may have. The next part is the description of your proposal. So what we're looking for is a concise summary. We want to make sure that you have a clear understanding of the goals and objectives of your project so that when we're reading it, we understand what they are as well. Now I'll be getting into the criteria that Nadia had mentioned. So the next few slides are going to be the bread and butter of your proposal. The first criteria will be how your project reduces barriers to future production. So describe to us how your project is critical to resource implementation and planning efforts. Does your project expedite future permitting, such as direct potable reuse, DPR, or is it a study for a new treatment technology that can hopefully facilitate new beneficial regulations for water research, future water resources? Can you describe your project and will it advance the field of knowledge for development of future resources? So if your results, can they be used in future research? Also show how your project is unique and innovative. Tell us what is the current state of the technology you're studying, and are there any similar or ongoing studies, and how is your project different? So as an example, in the previous round, one of the projects was on a tracer study using xenon, and the results were inconclusive. So if you were interested in doing another tracer study like this, just describe how the design of your project differs from the one that was previously done. And also include your literature search, a summary of what you've researched. And lastly, how can your project increase future local supply? The second criteria is how your project can be a regional benefit and if it's applicable to other agencies within the region. So can your project be applied to other member agencies and retail agencies? Basically, are your results transferable to other water agencies in the region? And if your project has any other benefits that may include environmental, water quality, or any other things, please let us know. The third criteria is going to be the work plan and schedule. So this is going to be the bulk of the proposal. It's going to be the section where you give us a detailed work plan, tell us what you're doing and how you're going to do it, and do that by describing each task and deliverable that's assigned to each task. Also, what type of metrics will you be using to measure the success of your project? Here we want you to come up with a schedule, identify what the start date of your project is, and this should be no later than February 28th of 2019, and your end date, which should be no later than 2 years after that, so February 28th, 2021, and identify your key milestones. Your schedule should also identify when your deliverables are due. So some examples for deliverables can be technical memos, progress reports, or even presentations. If you are partnering with other agencies, please describe the role and involvement of each partner. Who's going to be in charge of submitting deliverables, for example, or the invoices? Another thing to include here are if there's any factors that can affect the implementation of your proposals, how are you, whether it's challenges or issues or things that need to be taken care of beforehand, how are you going to address those? Tell us what they are and what you plan on doing to mitigate those. And clearly describe how the funds are going to be used. How do you plan to achieve your project goals and objectives given the schedule you've provided and the budget and the available staff you have? And the last criteria we'll be using to evaluate the proposals is cost. So this slide here shows a template that we've provided in the RFP, and the top table is going to be one per member agency. So if there are partnering agencies, each member agency should submit one of the top tables, and the bottom table is going to be the summary of the entire proposal. And on both these tables, the grand total non-metropolitan funding must be equal to or exceed the amount of metropolitan funded amount. And there shouldn't be any in-kind services included here in the matching fund. So some other items that we'd like you to provide in the cost section are a list of all the funding sources you have. So where is all the money coming from and how much each funding match is, as well as what is the status of the match. Is it, if it's from a water agency, is it budgeted, is it approved? If it's a grant, have you received it or did you apply for it? Also, include any supporting information, so like labor categories, hourly rates. If you have any subcontractor or consultant quotes, please include those as well. Here, just some things to note is we want to make sure that your cost breakdown is consistent with the schedule you've provided. We want to make sure that your project is cost effective and that the matching, that you describe the readiness to proceed with matching funds, meaning how are you going to commit to the funds prior to signing the FSA agreements with us. So to wrap things up, I'd like to touch on some lessons learned from the previous 2013 round. We wanted to mention that all of the projects that participated resulted in impactful studies. This program in general was very popular by member agencies, and the symposium that was hosted by Metropolitan at the end, which showcased all the results of the project, was very beneficial. We got positive feedback on that. And lastly, partnerships are extremely successful. Some things that we noticed needed some improvement were the submitted scopes of work. The invoicing process was a bit tedious for both us and for member agency staff. And progress reports and invoice due dates were sometimes a bit hard to meet, and they may be adjusted accordingly. So as Nadia already mentioned, she talked about what type of projects would qualify for this program and what wouldn't. So if you're interested in any of the projects that were done in the 2013 round, I've provided here the website so you can see the previously approved projects. And if you have any other questions after today, please feel free to email us at FSAfundingprogram@MWDH2O and to visit our website, which was given earlier, and you'll also get it in a later slide. Now, we'll be addressing some questions that we got prior to the webinar, and after that, like Warren mentioned earlier, if you have any verbal questions, please raise your hand and we can unmute you one at a time, and then we'll be going through the chat questions as well.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Before we open up the questions, I'm going to go over some of the questions that have been rolling in over the past couple of weeks, as well as a couple that we've gotten through the chat. So we've gotten a number of questions about in-kind funding matches and whether we're flexible and what kind of flexibility we have on that. And the reality is we don't have a lot of flexibility on in-kind. So it really needs to be a dollar for dollar match. Now, it doesn't have to be member agency dollars, and so you could match our dollars with Bureau money, with State Water Resources Control Board money, or any other type of grant money. But we will not be allowing in-kind from member agencies, in-kind matching from member agencies. So there are some twists on that so we did get a question that had a twist on this that we're still researching, and when we post the answers to all the questions, we'll post the answer to that as well. We had an interesting question about really what is a member agency, because we have cities that have multiple departments, and we're doing some research into that as well. Right now, we're leaning towards having all the proposals come from the water utility of the city, for instance. So if a city has a water utility department and a public works department, and both want to submit or both have a project, we would want that project submitted by the water utility, so we have a single point of contact. This would come into play, let's say, if more than $500,000 was requested, or if there were multiple proposals and they needed to be ranked. So we also had a question about partnering with entities that are not part of Metropolitan's community, not outside of Metropolitan's service area. We're still working on that. You know, this is really intended for Metropolitan member agencies and their sub-member agencies and utilities within Metropolitan's service area. So we're still wrestling with how to handle that. We might really only fund the part of the project that's within Metropolitan's service area. But we still are looking at that. So that was an interesting question. We had a question about who the support letter should be addressed to. And we are looking into that. I'm sorry that we don't have answers to a lot of these questions, but we will be posting the answers to this. So we're going to go back and look at who those letters were addressed to, and then we'll be posting those when we post the answers. We had a couple questions come in. Let's see. On the format. So we're asking for the format to be black and white text, but there can be images. Those images can be in color. Not all the text has to be black and white. There could be grayscale. And a related question that is, in RFP, we say 20 megabyte limitation, and in our presentation, we said 15 megabytes. So here's the reality of the situation. We think our email can take up to 20 megabyte files, but in order to be safe, we're asking that you keep it to 15 megabytes. If you go slightly over that, we probably can take it, but if you start bouncing up to a 20 megabit file, you might be risking us not being able to take it. So that was a good question, and apologies for that confusion. Another question we got was, well, if my member agency is submitting multiple projects, but they're all going to be under $500,000 in total, do we still need to rank them? So that ranking is helpful because we only have $3.5 million to award, and so knowing what the most important project for a member agency can be helpful in determining which ones get funded. So those are some of the questions that have come in, and we're getting a lot of questions coming in on the chat. So why don't why don't we open it up to people who have their hands raised?
Yes, actually, let me see.
And so we'll start unmuting you. We'll call your name, and then we'll allow you to ask your question, and then then we'll start addressing the questions that have come in through chat.
All right. Destin, you're unmuted now, so. I think Destin, I think you need to enter your PIN, otherwise you can't talk.
So while we're waiting for Destin, let me just answer one of the questions that came in. Which member agencies received funding as part of the 2013 Foundational Action Funding Program? I don't know them all off the top of my head. You can find them all on the 2013 website. They're all listed there. I'd recommend going there, and we can post that list as one of the questions.
Okay, we have a Richard Rule from Glendale. Hi.
Hi. You mentioned that the Water Research Foundation is conducting or about to start projects on direct potable reuse. Does that mean member agencies are precluded from doing that same kind of study? Okay,
so yes, we are. So the Water Research Foundation is funding, has an $8 million initiative to fund potable reuse research and non-potable reuse research. And Metropolitan has contributed $1 million, just under $1 million for that effort for 7 specific studies. And those studies include statistical methods for assessing pathogen removal, treatment and blending for system integration, measuring pathogen variability in raw and treated wastewater, optimizing wastewater treatment for potable reuse, integration of real-time sensor data, looking for indicator viruses that can be useful for treatment process and aquifer recharge monitoring, and then 1 non-potable study, which is addressing impediments to ag reuse. So those are 7 studies that we're funding. So member agencies are absolutely able to participate in those studies when they come out. In fact, we'd encourage it. The one thing that we would say, though, is for those 7 specific studies that you not also try to match our money for the member agency program with those 7 studies, because that would be kind of double dipping. However, those 7 studies are part of a much larger research initiative that includes about 20 different 20 studies that'll be RFP'd in the next 2 or 3 years, and those member agencies can apply to and potentially match with this $3.5 million, because that would not be double dipping Metropolitan money. Richard, did that answer your question?
Yes.
There's more information on Water Research Foundation's website, so and we can post that link to that as well. Okay.
Megan Plumley, I see your hands raised, but you need to enter your PIN, so I can't unmute you. So please let me know if you've entered your PIN, or if you don't have a PIN, I can also send you a PIN. So that's pretty much the hands raised.
All right, so I'll answer, while we're waiting, I'll answer another question that came in through the chat. Is there a contractual issue if we write in a specific consultant and experts into the proposal? The key individuals list only lists member agencies and other cooperating agencies. Yes, so the last time around, consultants were a crucial part of many of these studies. And if they're your partners, feel free to write them in. I think that's very valuable, especially if they're going to be doing the bulk of the work. And so let me say another word of partnerships. We really encourage the member agencies to partner. If you have a research objective that you think other member agencies share, please reach out to them. But you're also, feel free to reach out to other stakeholders like groundwater basin managers, wastewater agencies, stormwater agencies. So we encourage partnerships. That was really one of the key success items of the last round of funding, and so we'll be encouraging that. Anyone else raise their hands that we can address?
No.
Okay, so let's take another one. Can you scroll up, Steve? Is this next one? Okay. Well, yes, we will make the PowerPoint from today's presentation available. It'll be posted on our website. Let's see. How flexible are you with the 2 years time frame? Projects tend to delay. That's a very good question. Our goal is to have it all worked into 2 years. However, the program that we launched in 2013, the last project wasn't finished until this year. So we understand that there are delays, and many of the projects from 2013 were delayed. So we do have some flexibility, but our target is to try to get them. The projects should be envisioned to be completed in 2 years. And so if you're submitting a project that's going to take 4 or 5 years, that would not be favorably received. Okay. Is the draft sample agreement with MWD available now to review, just to ensure that we and our partners can meet the requirements? We are going to be redoing the agreement, so we do not have that available now, because we want to, there are several issues that were brought up that we want to address. That includes streamlining the invoicing process, That was a major burden, not just for member agency staff, but also for metropolitan agency staff. And so we want to find a way to reduce the burden while ensuring that we have the proper level of review. So that's going to be the challenge. Let's see. Does the term groundwater enhancement also refer to brackish groundwater desalination? Yes, in fact, several of the studies, well, at least one of the studies in the last go-round was a study on brine reduction for brackish groundwater. So absolutely, brackish groundwater is is classified under groundwater and is absolutely part of this program. Please elaborate on the subcontractor, consultant roles or limitations. For example, can a consultant be designated as a key individual? And yes, and so I think that goes back to one of the questions I answered earlier. So last time around, member agencies did sometimes, use consultants partnered with academic institutions and other partners. And so if those are key personnel on the project and you think they help the proposal, please do include them in the as key personnel. Do we have any other hands raised? Anyone else has hand raised?
Yes. Melissa. Hi, Melissa. I think you're self-muted. Try to.
Am I unself-muted now?
Yes.
And I'm sorry if you did say that. Do you need, I saw your answer about who the letters would be addressed to, or you'll come back to us with that. But did you also need resolutions from our boards sent in, or is our letters sufficient?
We can't remember. We'll have to get back. I think it was just a letter from the general manager, if I remember properly. But we'll clarify that and post that answer on our website.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Melissa. Any other raised hands?
Yes. Megan Plumley. Hi, Megan. Can you hear us?
Okay.
Yes.
If you could, this is Megan, thanks. If you could go back to the slide that showed the budget tables. I have a question about that, so it might be helpful to see it. Yeah, so in the first table, it kind of implies that the one-to-one, based on the way the table is set up, it kind of implies that the one-to-one match needs to be demonstrated task by task, and I wonder how flexible that is. So for example, if the first row there is task 1, maybe you want to see that, 50-50 share on each task with the non-MET share and then the requested MET funding. However, I could easily see a scenario, and we have this scenario in our potential project where, for example, if task 1 is a certain task that's being, for a consultant service, let's say, and it's being funded by a grant agency and that scope's already agreed on, so that, let's say it's $100,000 for a consultant fee funded from an outside party through a grant. And then we want to expand and improve the study via additional funds from MET. So task 2 might be some new task. And so then we would request the 100K match from MET that way. So do you see what I mean? And then each row wouldn't be 50-50, but the totals would sum up to a 1-to-1. Is that flexibility acceptable? Or does each task in and of itself need to demonstrate the 1-to-1 match?
So I think we were talking to Jason Didakis about this, perhaps?
Yes, you did, and you brought that issue up, but I don't think it was 100% clear, so I think you were thinking about it, so I wanted to follow up today.
Okay, so like under most circumstances, we'd like to see the 1-to-1 match per task. Now, as you know, we know as scopes get finalized, things need to be moved around, so we understand the flexibility for that. We would have to. I think we'll follow up with you and
Okay.
Jason on this one specifically, because we haven't seen this in any of the other proposals that have come in. So
Okay.
that's sort of a unique situation. But for the others on the phone, like the idea here is that we'd like to see, let's say if you're asking for 50,000 for if you have one task that's 100,000, we'd like to see 50,000 of the member agency match, wherever it comes from, be it a grant or from the member agency itself, matched, and then with the equal amount of metropolitan dollars. So if it's a $100,000 task, it'd be $50,000 member agency match and $50,000 metropolitan match. That's really what we envision in this table. And we know, again, that you know, things change as the scopes are finalized, and as the project moves forward. You know, we'll have flexibility in being able to move that match around. But at least in this proposal, we would like to see it one-to-one. But except for, I know your case is a little different. So
Yeah. Okay.
So Megan, we'll circle back with you offline.
Thank you. That sounds good.
And post the result also with the answers. And Don, you have something to say here?
Yeah, and I think one thing that we really want to see is the clarity of the tasks. I think it's really important to us, and then tied to some sort of a description of the task. So I think we understand what you're saying, and I think it's you know, as long as it's really clear to us what your intent is here, that whether you need a match for that particular task or not. But as Warren said, we'd like to have matches per task if possible.
Okay.
That we understand what you want us to fund and what you don't. I mean, and also too, in some of the final contracts, in the last round in the FAF, member agencies oftentimes put in things they were going to do in kind on a particular task. It was just zero on the metropolitan match for that task, so we were aware of the overall project cost, but it was clear that we were only funding certain things that were, you know, qualified here.
All right. Thank you, Don. Any other hands raised?
No, we're good.
Okay, so we still have some questions that have come in through the chat. Why don't we address those now? Let's see, we did, yes, so a consultant can be designated as a key individual. Is the cover letter coming from the public utilities? Should the letter be from the mayor, city manager, or director? If we decide, okay, I think, did we address that is that in the presentation? Tracy, do you know offhand?
I don't know, who it should be addressed to?
Who it should be addressed from?
I believe it should be from the manager, but what my
I have the RFP right here. I'm going to open it up because I think we talked about it in the RFP. Okay, so it's the letter should be signed. So this is on page 7 of the actual RFP document. The letter should be signed by an individual authorized to bind the proposing member agency and shall identify all materials and enclosures being forwarded. So wait, this is the executive summary letter, or is this? Yes, that's right. So that's described more on page 7, and we'll elaborate in the answer that we post online as well. Let's see, if the next question is, if we decide that we're not ready to bid because of timing, will you have this opportunity again in 1 year? Probably not in 1 year. So we are going to try to, you know, depending on the success of this round of funding, this could become a permanent program. The last round was sort of a pilot study that was launched in 2013, and it just wrapped up now. So it's been sort of 5 years since we did the last round. I don't think it would be in 1 year. Perhaps 2 years is like the cycle that we'd like to get on. That's similar to how our innovative conservation program works. So every 2 years they issue RFPs, and I can imagine this head in that same direction, but I can't guarantee it, and so we really can't answer that question with an affirmative. Essentially, that's I don't know. So here's the question from Destin. Member agencies may submit proposal funding requests of up to $500,000 per agency, or up to $500,000 for a single proponent. Yes. So yeah, the limit is so the way this works is a member agency can submit up to, one proposal for $500,000, or submit several proposals, including partnering proposals, that total $1 million. So in other words, no project can be more than $500,000, and no member agency can have more than $500,000 matched. So let's say an agency submits 2 proposals, and those proposals total up to $400,000, and then they partner in another proposal but aren't the lead, and they would only be able to partner, match up to $100,000 in that third proposal, because they wouldn't be able. No member agency can match more than $500,000. So you're right, that $500,000 applies to the agency, and it also applies to any single given project. So our questions coming through chat going to be shared so that everyone else can see. So I didn't realize that you couldn't see that. Can we can you let us know if you can see these questions? Because we can see them here.
Okay.
Okay, so they're under.
Yes.
Okay, so here's.
So I'm trying to answer it as you try.
Okay, and so the questions are actually shown under the questions tab, not under the chat tab. So try opening up the chat tab, and we're trying to type the answers as we're answering them. Okay, so Megan, we got your question. Let's see. As a public agency, we have to select a consultant through strict process. So to get a quote for the budget from a consultant, yes, that is okay. We understand that after you get the award, you're going to have to put the consultants, and so there's flexibility for that. I believe, John, is that the way it worked last time around?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the arrangement between the member agency, sub-agency, and their consultants is really, we don't really get into. It's just, it's a contract between, an agreed upon amount of money for their services is between you and the consultant, and it just has to be within the budget you have proposed in your RFP.
Right, and those things will be ironed out when we, after projects are selected, there will be an agreement process. So a lot of that will be handled, specifying exactly which consultants are doing what, which tasks. That'll be, we know that's going to change between by the time the proposal comes in and when the project's finalized, and so that will all come out during the agreement negotiation process towards the end of this year. Let's see. Let's see. Any other hands raised before I handle the next question?
Okay. Hi, Destin. I can't seem to unmute you still because you haven't entered your PIN. Do you not? You can send me a question if you need a PIN.
So while we're waiting, so the next question is, does the program require adoption of resolution of the agency board? And Don, do you remember if this requires a board adoption?
I don't remember that offhand. We obviously had these same executive summary letters signed by the appropriate person in the organization. We would have to go back and take a look. I don't think that was the case, but I think the letter was enough, but we can check.
Okay, we'll check and we'll definitely answer that question. I want to go back to the last part of Kevin's question. I just want to make sure that your proposal, as it comes in with the matching funds, Don, did any proposals come in and then ask for different matching funds when we got to the agreement stage? Because I think if a proposal is accepted with a certain amount of match, I think that match is fixed.
Yeah, I believe the match was fixed. We may have done some tweaking on the amounts in the tasks themselves, based upon perhaps the member agency found out some additional information and wanted to, to put more money towards a particular task. And I think we're flexible in that regard, but we tended to stay with the amount that was in the proposal.
Right. So Kevin, I'm not sure if this is what you're asking, but let's say you put in a proposal that asks for 100,000 of metropolitan match. Then when you bid out the consultant, it turns out that it's 200,000 that you need. I don't think we'll be able to, make that kind of change. If we approve the proposal for $100,000, I think that's pretty fixed. So I hope that answers your question. I think we'd have to think about that maybe a little bit more as well. Let's see. Did I hear you say that the last date for questions is August 2nd? If so, that appears to be too far away from when the due date of August 31st is. There can be questions that arise as the applications are developed and likely to occur. A deadline request to the following. I think we can consider that. We'll go back and talk to our managers about that. That's quite reasonable. We do want to be able to post answers to the questions that we do receive in a timely fashion. So please do try to get your questions in as soon as possible. But we'll look to moving that deadline back to the 9th as requested. Right? Is that the last last question? Okay, that's the last question that we have in the question part of the webinar. Do we have any other hands raised, or does anyone have any other questions that they'd like to pose before we move on to the next part of the webinar?
There's no hands raised.
Okay, so no hands raised. So we want to shift gears. Okay, so one more thing, please. You can submit questions through that email, the FSA funding program, and I'll go over this again at the very end of the webinar. So we know you guys have a lot of questions, and there's no way we were able to address them all here. So feel free to keep on sending them in, and we're thankful for these questions. This helps us develop a better program. So these are very good questions, and we're very thankful. So at this point, we're going to talk about some of the new technology and innovation resources that we have available to the member agencies should you want to look for a new technology. And we're going to turn it over to, who are we turning it over to? Okay, so we're going to turn it over to Wiggs Mendoza, who is in our external affairs group and works on our innovation program. We also have Peggy Vogt here as well that can also help answer questions related to innovation. And by the way, Don Bentley was helping me answer some of the questions that you heard earlier, and is also very knowledgeable about the program. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the presentation over to Wiggs to talk about our innovation resources.
Good morning.
Wait, Wiggs, you're coming in very static. A lot of static.
Yeah, I know that. Can you hear me now?
We can't hear you.
What about now?
It's not coming in, Wiggs. You're going to scare away the member agencies.
Okay. I'm trying. I don't know what I have to do, but I'm talking. Am I muted?
No.
No.
We hear you, Wiggs.
We can hear you, but it's coming in very statically and very loud, and we can't really understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Oh.
Oh, I can hear you now.
Now it's better.
Okay.
Oh, there.
All right. Okay. Good morning. My name is Wiggs Mendoza. I am with the Innovation and Business Outreach team of Metropolitan Water District. For this particular program, what our innovation team does is we scout technologies. We have access of different kinds of technologies, and we can access them globally through our partners. We also facilitate the introduction and discussion with agencies, metropolitan or other water agencies with these technologies, just in case these technologies would be applicable to metropolitan or other water agency operations. One role that we also do is to assist entrepreneurs who have technologies that can be potentially used by metropolitan. We assist them in trying to understand how to work with member agencies. In this program, the FSA, our role would be to support member agencies or respondents to the RFP in case you need technologies or you want to find out about technologies that can cover the 4 themes of this FSA funding program. So if you feel that you'd like to find out about the technology that you can use as part of this FSA program, you can contact us. That'll be either John Arena, Wiggs Mendoza, me, Peggy Vogt, and Warren Tights. You can email us at h2otechhub@mwdh2o.com. You can also go to our website, which is mwdinnovates.com, or call our hotline at 213-217-7620. Thank you. I'm handing it back to Warren.
Okay, Wiggs, thank you very much. We're very excited about our innovation program, and we've seen a lot of amazing new technologies related to the 4 resources that are here. I just want to go over again one more time the key milestones. Oh, Peggy, do you want to say something?
I just wanted to add that we have global connections, and we actually have global technologies from Israel and Australia, from all over the world. And we have databases that we can actually connect with from IL Utilities and MARTA that are working in the USDA programs and other international programs.
Okay, so again, those are available to our member agencies and their sub-member agencies. These are tremendous innovation resources. If you have a problem and you don't have a solution, the chances are that someone's thought of it, and we might have access to that technology. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the webinar. Before we close it out, are there any raised hands? Any other questions that have come in?
No.
Okay, so the milestone. So we'll revisit the questions for clarification based on the comment. We'll think about pushing it back to the 9th. I think that's a reasonable question. We'll continue I think we will use our website to answer the questions as they come in, so that these questions don't linger. I want to answer them as quickly as possible so that you guys can move forward with your proposals. And then again, this is probably the most important deadline, August 31st, proposals due at 1 p.m. via email to that FSA funding program at mwdh2o.com. We'll be using that email timestamp as the criteria for the timing, and we'll make sure that everyone gets a notice that we've received it and that it came in on time. So we'll be using this website, mwdh2o.com/FSA. We'll direct you to the website where we already have the RFP posted, but we'll also be posting other materials, including the questions here. So next slide, I think, is anyone doing it? That's it. Okay. Well, I want to thank everyone for participating, and thank you for your great questions. This is going to help us refine our efforts. Okay, we did get a question. Thank you. Will this webinar be archived for later viewing? I think we have that capability, and if that's something that's requested, we can also post that up on the website. So that's a tentative yes. Thank you for that question. So we're excited about this program. Thank you for participating. Thank you for your questions. They were all good questions. We're looking forward to your proposals. Many of you have contacted me already with your ideas. Again, feel free to do that. I can't guarantee that anything gets funded. You know, that's up to the experts. But I can tell you whether you're, you know, kind of on the right track or the wrong track. Partnerships. We only have we have 26 member agencies, and we only have $3.5 million. So partnering is key. We really hope that you partner with each other and other stakeholders within our service area. And thank you for your participation. And you know, feel free to keep the questions rolling in. And at this point, this webinar is concluded. Thank you very much.